The other big talking point post-COVID is definitely medical tourism, medical value tourism. There's so much of an impetus from the government as well on it. And companies or hospitals are looking at capex which is catered to inflow of patients from abroad. Where does it stand as a percentage of sales? How bullish are you on it as a prospect?
People have always measured it as a percentage of sales. So we should close the year with 7%. But having said that, the absolute revenue coming from international patients has actually grown over 19% over 2020 when it was peaked. So in absolute terms, there has been an increase. And I think the potential is to go to 20% of revenue. And we believe that, that Apollo will be the biggest player in international patient traffic. And I say this because of our locations. In 2 years, we'll open our Gurgaon facility. We have Delhi, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Ahmedabad. Being located in all of these centers is bringing us patients from across the world.
Acquisitions, would you look at acquisitions just to fuel that aspect of growth? You have made smaller acquisitions, but something larger, any kind of pipeline you can share with us?
I think any acquisition that is value accretive makes sense to us. So we did Gurgaon, which is brownfield. We're setting up a hospital of the future in OMR in Chennai. So clearly we are expanding our footprint. We're adding 2,000 beds in the next 4 years. So it is a huge expansion. And acquisitions, if something comes across, something comes our way, of course we'll look at it.
Are you looking at acquisitions in the diagnostic space? Considering what has taken place, you all have big plans in diagnostics.
Yes.
You all are looking at around 500 crores in terms of revenue, probably scaling up to around 1,000 crores in 3 years as well. Are you going to do that organically because of the competition?
It's so easy and scalable, the diagnostic business, that you really don't have to make big acquisitions. It's like pharmacy. We only did one acquisition, but we have 5,000 pharmacies. And we are the largest player. So I think in diagnostics, maybe some small acquisitions the team might make. And the reason we do this is because economies of scale. We're setting up a very high-end genetic lab in Hyderabad. So it won't be the regular tests. We'll do the difficult complex testing, especially for oncology cases, which will mean better margins.
But is that the future of diagnostics? Because there's so much competition. If you look at the online aggregators, if you look at hospital labs, standalone labs, 100 rupee tests by an online aggregator, that's how competitive the industry is. What is your sense in terms of whether or not that's going to be lucrative at the end?
I think we've always differentiated ourselves by a clinical offering. Like I said, we will be a player at scale in diagnostics, but we will have all the high-end testing, and that will give us some margins. So currently we're at 13% in the diagnostic business, which is a healthy margin. But I think moving on with us opening out at scale, having created these labs, we have more than 2,000 touch points. So I think 1,000 crores of revenue and a healthy margin is something you would expect to see.
And diagnostics is currently housed in Apollo Health and Lifestyle.
Yes.
You also have Apollo Health Co. What happens on a larger scale in terms of restructuring? Are you probably going to look to hive off a couple of these verticals?
So Apollo Health Co will definitely get a capital infusion, but it will always be a significant part of Apollo. We look at the rest of the story as it develops. But I must say that Apollo is more than a holding company, because the diagnostic business is something that has huge growth opportunities, and we will make sure that there will be enough funding available for them to grow that. But right now you must think of Apollo as 3 verticals. One which is primary care, which includes diagnostics, clinics, and 2,000 touch points. The hospitals, of course, where we have about 45 hospitals that generate and about 9,000 operating beds, moving up to 10,000. So the hospital vertical is currently 55% of our revenues and generates very healthy margins. So we will continue growth there. Then there's the pharmacy business, which is at 40% of revenue. And that again, we've just spoken about Apollo HealthCo, the fact that it's the only omni-channel play in the market today.
Okay, what does all of this do to your margins? Because healthcare services has been growing. Yes, there has been some, brickback in terms of your new centers. But your overall margins are probably being pulled down by Apollo HealthCo at this point, simply because of the kind of gestation period that it's in. What can you guide us in terms of the consolidated blended margins for the company?
So yes, I think if you look at the entire revenue and look at the margin profile, it's still a very healthy margin profile, about 14 to 15%, with the hospitals coming in with very strong margins. And we closed last quarter with 24.6, and we will see another 150 basis points improvements coming from the hospital. But I want to say that, what we've done is to create a network of primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, with pharmacy, and soon, with the online consultations. So you must think of us more in terms of how many consumers we reach out to, how many patients we look after. And while that's all about market share, Apollo will have the largest market share in the healthcare space. And margins will come from market share.
Okay, eventually. But as of now, you're envisaging putting around 550 to 600 crores in Apollo HealthCo. This year itself, I think you did around 170 crores in terms of operating costs in the previous quarter. So does that scale up next year, or does that sustain?
That is, there could be another 100 crores that they might need. But if the capital infusion comes, they won't really need it. And most of this capital will be deployed for condition management, to onboard condition management, because they do have the pharmacy business is generating over 500 crores of cash, which they will use.
Okay. Eventually, there'll be a simplification in terms of the kind of model that you have. You want to be a 360-degree player in the healthcare space, offering services across verticals. Eventually, there will be some simplification in terms of the structure.
I think right now we must think of these three as the pillars, and I think all of it comes from both a patient perspective and a stakeholder perspective. So, I think we'll align ourselves with what is first good for the patient, and second, what is good for our stakeholders.
There's been some concern with regards to CCI probes on a couple of hospital companies. Where do things stand? Have you all replied to the government? Have you all reached out?
Yes, we have, and that was only for Indraprastha. I think there was a lot of miscommunication that it went across the Apollo system. I think it was a very Delhi-focused CCI, and I'm quite confident that we've done the right thing.
Ms. Reddy, if we have to end this conversation with a larger scale or a larger picture of Apollo, say we have to have this conversation 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, where do you see Apollo? What is your vision?
So I think you will see Apollo as a network which has hospitals and, like I said, primary care touch points, as well as a pharmacy. So my vision is that, that for the consumer, we can complete the entire healthcare offering, the 360-degree offering, that we are not transactional, we're proactive, because we also want to look after their health, even in the preventive healthcare space. And I think that the next segment of growth will come from the preventive healthcare space. So watch out for us now.
But preventive healthcare, just a quick word on that. How much is it as a percentage of sales currently, and where are you probably targeting the patient or the consumer when it comes to preventive healthcare?
By next year, it will be at 500 crores of sales, and
currently it is?
It's about 300.
Okay, and that includes healthcare services across the board, or just?
No, it includes the health checkups.
Health checkups.
So I'm only counting the health checkups. I'm not talking about the 100 rupee diagnostic tests.
So there's a huge difference in terms of the healthcare system
Yes.
of India pre and post COVID.
There is.
Leave us
there
with your
is.
thoughts.
No, there is a huge difference, and the important thing is that people have become conscious of their health. Second, the penetration of insurance has been tremendous. In our payer mix, it's increased by 20%. So this gives people access into the healthcare system, and they're looking for quality healthcare. And I'm glad that we are there to provide it in every form and every format.
Okay, Ms. Reddy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining in and talking to us.
My pleasure.